Hey everybody, I just got done watching the Vadim Marshul movie, The Painted Bird. Now, The Painted Bird has been on my radar for 6 months, a year or so. I had heard about this kind of really divisive, supposed to be kind of a shocking, war movie, kind of epic war movie that had come out recently, and I think it now is just getting its real release for most people. It's video on demand, rental, pretty much on every platform right now. That being said, it's being touted as one of the disturbing, shocking, violent kind of movies, which doesn't necessarily drive me away. In fact, Martyrs or Irreversible, I can really enjoy a movie like that if it's done right, and it can be really visceral and really impactful. So what's the basic concept of The Painted Bird? This takes place, I want to say, in the last days of World War II. It's a little indeterminate, and the time period that the movie takes place over is a little bit indeterminate as well. It feels like it's supposed to be a year or two, and I believe in the actual filming time, it took a year or two to film this because the boy that's the main subject, he ages a couple years. It looks like he goes from like 11 to 12 and a half or something like that. You can tell he gets a little bigger, a little older, but he's still a pretty little kid overall. Now, this really falls into, it's almost a war subgenre, I guess, and that is, seeing the horrors of war through the eyes of a child, I guess. On the more, relatively lighthearted side of that would be movies like, Hope and Glory, which isn't super dark, but still kind of has edges of that. And then on the darker side, you've got some really amazing movies like Grave with the Fireflies, the animated Japanese movie, which is just an amazing movie, as well as I think 1988's Come and See, and that's a really, once again, that's a real stunner and very, it'll hit you. It's pretty bleak, but really good movie. And I think, to me, of all the movies that I have personally seen, that would probably be most comparable in kind of the approach and style, that would be Come and See, which I would say is the better movie compared to this movie. But let's get into this movie. So basically, you've got this boy, and I think through pretty much the whole movie, till later on, you just know him as boy, or you don't really even know a name for him. He's just kind of the unnamed boy. It starts out with him staying with his aunt for safekeeping. His parents kind of sheltered him off with his aunt out in the country. Very quickly, the aunt dies. She's an elderly woman, and he's kind of left to his own devices to wander the countryside. And that is kind of the concept of the story, right? So it's cut up into little segments. Every segment will start with a name or a couple names. Say Olga. A black screen, it'll say Olga, and then you'll see the boy wander into the life of Olga. So in a sense, I talked about the other war movies it's kind of similar to. It also has shades of those movies where a character kind of goes through a bunch of moments in history. I think of things like Oh Lucky Man or Little Big Man, I guess it was, Little Big Man. But once again, this is more closely related to those earlier types of war movies I mentioned. So he goes from scene to scene, and there's a lot of violence, a lot of really intense violence. And what do I want to say? What is my impression of this movie? I honestly would say, fuck this movie. I hate this movie. This movie is terrible. Okay, that's not fair. Terrible doesn't tell you anything. So why would I hate this movie? I've liked very violent war movies. This movie, the production value and the cinematography is beautiful. In fact, so the cinematography is by Vladimir Stutny. It's gorgeous, black and white, stark, widescreen. almost all of it's out on location in natural settings, very few sets, and it looks gorgeous, gorgeous. But the movie, so what is this movie trying to get at? So first of all, the main kid in the movie, and it's played by, I'll get his name here, the boy is played by Petra Kotlar, I guess it is. And he's fine. He's good. He does a good job acting, especially for a kid. But the problem is, I don't know if it's the direction or just the story itself, because he's supposed to kind of just experience all these different encounters. He's just kind of a blank slate. And the story is going to be his journey. So what is his journey going to be? Like, what's going to happen to him? How is he going to be changed? And I realize there's supposed to be something that you see towards the end that's supposed to tell you like how he's come through this whole series of events and what's happened to him. But for me personally, it was bullshit. It wasn't enough. It was this movie has pretensions of being stark and illuminating about the atrocities of humanity and war. And I think that's part of the reason I react so badly to it. I love tons of violent movies, horror movies, thrillers, action movies, and realistic movies like this that are stark and horrifying. You know, Schindler's List, perfect example, very horrifying movie, but is a beautiful and impactful movie. To me, this movie is borderline torture porn. Really. To me, this movie has little more redeeming value than a Hostel movie, which is the kind of the classic horror porn, template, I guess you'd say. Now, why do I say that? You go from scene to scene to scene, and you see him just encounter these terrible situations. So you want to go as you're going through, like, is it going to show you how terrible the soldiers were? Yeah, it will show you how terrible the soldiers were. From all sides. They're kind of on the Eastern Bloc side, so you'll see Russians and you'll see Nazis. Are the Nazis bad? Yes. Are the Russians bad? Yes. Is there one kind of good Nazi? Okay, sure. There's a couple people that show him kindness. But overall, pretty much all the soldiers are horrible, doing horrible things. Even the ones that show him kindness are doing horrible things and giving him horrible advice. On the other side of that, pretty much all of the civilians he meets are horrible people too, and horrible things. They're doing horrible things, and horrible things are happening to them. And once again, I don't know how to tell people this. It's not just that horrible things are happening. I am not squeamish. I do not have a problem with a horrible thing happening in a story where it is illuminating or character driven or shows you something about the path of a character or affects a character in a way that is going to tell you something about the world or that you're seeing, or the world that we live in now, or as an allegory. But this movie is almost like I was thinking about it when I was watching it. It's like a slideshow of violence. Like, what are all the bad things that could happen in war? Let's have, 10 vignettes, and each one of those different things is going to happen in one of those vignettes. The kid's going to wander through it, come out the other end. He might be a little upset, or he might not be. He kind of has a straight face the whole time. I'll give you an example of one. And the violence is like, it's almost unrealistically, cartoonishly violent. There's a really famous shot that you'll see a bunch in the promo footage of the boy buried up to his neck in the dirt with a crow next to him, or a raven. It looks cool. There's a kind of a reason it happens in the story, but honestly, I feel like it's like, ooh, that will be shocking and like memorable and visually interesting. Let's do that. Okay, well, you could do that in like a Friday the 13th movie. When you do a movie like this, you gotta justify it. It's gotta have a good reason. Another example, and once again, I'm not spoiling anything unless your thing that you don't want spoiled is like some cool moment of violence. Well, this isn't supposed to be a Friday the 13th movie, so that cool moment of violence shouldn't be a spoiler for you. Anyway, I'll give you one example. In one vignette, he is taken in by this family, or a man and a woman, a younger woman, older man. The man is jealous. There's a farmhand that she might be having an affair with. The man is jealous and fit of jealous rage at dinner. He attacks the other guy, and the older man scoops the other guy's eyes out with a spoon. Okay, this is like horror movie violence. It's beyond, sure, could that have happened in real life? I suppose, but it doesn't seem very realistic to me, and it's almost laughably cartoonish. And then you take it to the next level. They show, the guy with the no eyes now goes screaming out into the night outside of the little, hut. And then on the floor you see the eyeballs, kind of close to you in the camera's eye, and in the distance you see the boy on the ground. He crawling towards the eyeballs, which are being licked by a cat. And then later you see that the boy has taken the eyeballs and put them in his pocket, and later on he finds the guy with no eyes and he gives the guy the eyeballs, who's, weeping in an anguish. It's laughable. This is ridiculous. And the vignettes vary in levels of depravity, and they vary in levels of effectiveness or silliness. But honestly, the only thing that makes me give this higher than a 1 out of 5 is the production value and the cinematography. They're beautiful. But I'll give it a 2. That's all I'm going to give this movie. I hate this movie. Hate it. I understand some people are going to love it. Some people find it impactful. Somebody that I really respect and who most opinions I almost always agree with quite likes this movie. I am not on board with this movie in any sense of the word. And it's nearly 3 hours. Do not waste your time. It's got known actors which are plopped in here, I guess to give it, credibility. Stellan Skarsgård. You got Harvey Keitel. You've got Barry Pepper, who's kind of making a comeback these days, and I love seeing Barry Pepper, and he's fine in this. I mean, all these actors are fine in this movie for what they're asked to do. They do a good job. It's just a vapid story that isn't pretending to be impactful. And for me, it was bullshit. That's what I'm going to rate it. I'm not going to rate it 2 stars. I'm going to rate it a bullshit. Anyway, hopefully I'll have a better movie to bring you next time. And I was quite looking forward to seeing this movie. So I will talk to you all soon.